Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the... Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 26th TouchDesigner Roundtable Berlin. We've prepared a lot of comfortable seats for you, so if you want, take a seat. I'll make a break. So, well, thank you all for coming, and a big thank you to popkudamm and Till Harter who host us here and made this nice place available for us on very short notice. Also, a big thank you to our supporters, in this case popkudamm and Derivative, but also the people from the community who bought the supporter tickets. It's Philipp Infantino, Daniel Molnar, and Linda Nicolai. Thank you very much. As you know, this is a free event. We do this for the community, but of course there's a lot of effort going into it, so we really appreciate this financial support, which helps us to improve and get better and also have a better stream and so on. So again, thank you very much for these supporter tickets, and everybody who likes to come back to the roundtable and makes good connections. You're all very welcome to join these supporters. It's not very expensive, but is your place in the limelight. Yeah, and then we have a very nice lineup of presentations today, and I have to be very thankful to everybody because we were very late. We were asking on very short notice, and all of them said, next week, yeah, okay, let's do it. And that is really a great compliment. And I'm happy to introduce the first presenter. It's KARIM HEGAZY, living in Berlin, part of the Symbiotism Collective. And when I saw KARIM VJing the first time, my heart beat higher because you will see the techniques that he uses, and that kind of really connects to my personal history. There are devices that I found out about in the early 2000s, and then I saw them on KARIM's desk, and it was like, yeah, cool. So thank you, KARIM, for coming. Without further big words, I would give the mic to you. Thank you.
Okay, once more from start. So I'm KARIM HEGAZY. I'm gonna talk today about analog digital hybrid, especially in TouchDesigner, and the ways I achieve it. As I said, my artist name is Kimo Slice, which comes from Kimo. It's my Egyptian nickname, and slice is from a sampling technique in audio, which is called slicing, where you take samples and cut them up, rearrange them, and process them in a different way. And also it's a reference to if somebody knows Kimbo Slice, but it's a bad idea always to take a name from someone that is more famous than yourself. So I was born in Egypt. I was raised in Germany. My father was Egyptian, my mom is German. I lived in the south of Germany for a long time until 2011 when I decided to go to Berlin. So the reason I went to Berlin was actually to study music and sound production, where I also met two of my best friends that I started a band with, which was called Lionsphere. Until last year, we performed and wrote songs together, released 2 EPs, 1 album, but at some point we also wanted to make a bit more space for other things to do and other interests, which brought me to TouchDesigner, not exactly, because I started with Unity and doing audio reactivity with Unity, which turned out to be a mess for me because I'm not a coder. I have no idea about coding, so I was writing a lot of code which I didn't understand. So at some point I saw a friend of mine working with TouchDesigner, which raised my interest in actually working with it. And yeah, also thanks to Touch and these meetups that are organized by the Node Institute, by Wieland and Stefan, I met a lot of great people I'm working with. One of these peoples are the Symbiotism Collective, and recently we started also the Real Studio, which is a collective of Dan Molnar, which is you probably also know as Function Store, Acricode, which is Felipe, and Staff, who's sitting there, also known as Staff. But yeah, so I specialized myself a lot on audio reactivity, and somehow I also ended up doing a lot of analog digital hybrids. So how did I actually start? I started a lot with, I guess, everyone who started after 2020 or 2021 started the same way, by doing a lot of Billiam tutorials and Pagada 12, also then well, function stores and Acricodes tutorials. So in the beginning I started to learn a lot techniques, but not in a bigger picture. It was content for mainly 15 to 30 seconds. But I, at some point, started to work on an audio reactive album where I based all of my work on music I previously did. It was a 36 minutes album, which had 16 different tracks, which was a lot of work for someone that didn't know TouchDesigner at all. But I somehow managed to do something that I'm pretty happy with. I haven't released it till now, but to start with, I'll show you a bit of a trailer just to give you a quick feeling how I actually started doing things that I like in TouchDesigner. Okay, so there was wasn't anything much to show anymore anyway, but that helped me a lot to understand workflows and how to arrange things that are longer than 30 seconds. So it helped me a lot to realize what are the things that I can tweak while being played. It never was a system that ran on real time because it was way too heavy and I was rendering most of the stuff in 4K. But as you see, I spent a lot of time with the animation comp and learned this one in and out. which is not worth the time, to be honest, but I did it anyway. But at the same time, I also started to experience, to play around a lot with analog visuals and analog synthesis, which always was kind of a logical step to me, having analog and digital together, because from audio or music production, you always have both worlds, and you can combine both worlds, which always was a pleasure for me in audio. So for me, the logical step was do this also in video. So I bought a lot of mixers, and just to explain you a bit more how it actually works, because it's not that far off from TouchDesigner, because you have similar signal flows. So this, in the end, is also a feedback loop, where you use the output. You can see this as a maybe comp top or under or over top or whatever. And you use this signal, send it out to each unit. By the way, this is the MX10. So the guys that know Stefan, this is the unit where he has its name from. And so you can see each of these units as a node, for example, in TouchDesigner. These ones, for example, are similar to an HSV adjust. They also have a negative, which is maybe close to a level top, where you invert the signal. So that's what I actually do here also. I'm inverting the signal, which then gives all these shapes. And I can create a lot of different shapes with each different unit. So each processor has slightly different settings, and you can kind of arrange everything. It's a bit fiddly, it's a bit of a cable mess. It has its own illness or ghost, so whatever you want to call it, because sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. But it's kind of fun to play around, because you never get out what you expect. So what was my next logical stop? It was kind of combining, as I said, as an audio, combining both of it. So for example, in this pretty simple explanation, example, there's a circle which is then transformed by a noise and then send out. This is not more than a window comp. So I open this in a second screen, and from there on, maybe I'll show you with the next one. Yeah, it gets a bit messy, but that's the way I like to work also. So I send out this signal into a so-called downscaler. These downscalers are not so much, there's no difference to a converter, if you want to call it like this. I get the HDMI signal, so it's like a second screen, and then I convert into S-video or composite, which is the signal which analog signals work with. So I get these as a channel. For example, we call this channel B. And on channel A, I have, as I explained before, I have this feedback loop. So if I key out now the black signal, I get only the white circle, which is then put into the feedback loop of these units. And in the end, at least that's what I do at home, I get one of the outs back into a Elgato HD60S, which is my capture card and is connected via USB, which I then can get the signal from in the video device in, top, and some blooming just to make it a bit more beautiful. But that's how I achieved, at least, to get a signal flow there where I can get the signal out and capture it back again. So where did this get me? To a point where I bought a lot of CRTs, and I had very, very less space in my room. But I somehow enjoyed a lot of these, especially having walls of CRTs and using them as for VJ setups. So maybe I'll quickly show you just the patch, how I actually work. So normally How I do it, I have also a Focusrite where I get the audio from the live band or the DJ or whoever. And I have my own little messy setup here. Yes, it could be better. Yes, it could be more structured, but things you learn at some point after you do stuff like this. But this is all the MIDI setup. Yeah. So that's how I control everything. I have 2 layers. I built this thing close to an actual VJ mixer or video mixer, similar to the V4 by Eddie Roll, or as you saw maybe before, the V4EX. So there are certain shapes I can do, and I can do some transform, some feedback loops, which are quite handy, also some tiling, some rotation, and with all of this, you can have quite a messy signal, which then will be transported to, as I showed you before, to a CRT setup, which I implemented also a lot live, or you can also do it, which I do a lot more on projectors or LED screens. But in the end, it's way more fun to do it with CRTs because you can position them differently on a stage. As you can see here, I did this with Energy Exchange, which is I know Siggy very well, the drummer, and good friends of mine that invited me to play this gig. And just to give you a quick feeling of how it actually looked. So it's always pretty fun to perform also live with the visuals, which always was a pretty big joy for me to kind of have, because it feels like performing with the artists, but more in the back. I had enough of also being on stage since I was there for 10 years, playing a lot of concerts, and at some point I felt like I can enjoy this way more by doing actually visuals. And the understanding of music and arrangements or cues, for example, cues by Ziggy, the drummer, musical understanding, which helped me in general to understand also what's possible with audio reactivity and as a VJ, because I feel more like I'm also a performer with them than doing just visuals for someone. So, wait. I somehow ended also up doing a lot of installations where I just gather as much TVs as I can and stack them up and daisy chain them and have just like very, very big installations of CRTs that play different signals combined always with audio. So I did this, for example, in Monopole in the beginning of this year. I'm not even sure anymore, but I think so. So the good thing is I figured out that you don't need a big signal for CRTs because the signal flow of PAL is in 720 by 576, which, as you all know, is not that much of a resolution. Also, it's good for my laptop because I only have a 960M, which is not very powerful, but it works with stuff like this. So this was the setup for this one, for the CRTs, which I just showed you. And it works quite simple. I have 26 different patches, which I trigger randomly whenever the song stops or starts. Well, whenever it starts, it triggers a new patch. So I have 36 different tracks, which trigger 26 different patches randomly. So whenever a song stops, like this, it randomly triggers a different one, and you can hear the music combined with different visuals. And it's always different, which was a thing I wanted to have, to not be bored by myself also, to not always see the same thing, but always experience the things I know for a lot of years, especially the music, experience them differently. Also, what I did was, if you saw in this one maybe, the signal looks different than it, oh wait. The signal looks different than in touch, obviously, but that's because I used also a secret band unit, an analog video, and also some chroma keying with the V4, another mixer. So it's always the combination for me of analog and digital, which I enjoy most. And it's, for me, it's the pleasure of having the best of two worlds, because it's, analog always is a bit messy, analog is always a bit not that clean, it's sometimes ugly, but you have to work with it in one way or another. So that's how I kind of ended up doing a lot of these things, these installations, working with analog, working with digital, but in a hybrid, which for me is one of the biggest joys I can have, because it just makes sense for me. Yeah, and I guess that's it. By the way, if you have any more questions, feel free to ask me whenever you want, or hit me up and ask me personally, because I tried to rush through this to not take too much time away.
Yeah, thank you. I have to think about Namjoon Paik when I see these piles of monitors, of course.
That's a big inspiration also, of course.
He is great. But I was wondering if you ever wanted to address them as a monitor wall, in the sense of that you split up the signal.
Of course. That's one of the struggles I have with the analog signals. It's not that easy to split it up. There are ways, as I know now, especially in with Raspberry Pi. That's what I heard, at least. There's also a way of doing it with splitters before, and then converting in analog. But then you get the mess of having a lot of outboard equipment and buying for each CRT another gear that converts the signal, which then can get probably a bit messy. But it's possible. I saw it a lot, especially also from some people that share it through TouchDesigner, through the TouchDesigner community. So I guess it's the next logical step for me also.
Any other comments from the audience? No, they're all very familiar with analog video production.
I guess. Or it's frightening.
When I saw this thing where you have the CRTs on stage, it reminded me that when I got in touch with this stuff was just a time when kind of television was losing its magical, very expensive aura, and back then it was kind of a, you know, cool, edgy thought to say, well, the TV is just a light source. And that was like really, you know, people had to really wrap their head around. You can use this thing actually just as a light source, right? Because it was still, you know, what the internet is today, like the frame of reference for everything. So it's kind of interesting to see it now being completely free for artistic use. Wieland.
Du sollst nur 2 Schritte näher kommen.
Jetzt soll ich wieder gehen. Okay. Yeah, good. Then if we have no more questions, then thank you very much for your attention, Kim, Karim, Kimo. Thank you very much for coming and for showing us this wonderful world of analog digital. We're going to head into a break, and at 8 we're going to be back with Ephemeral Tomorrow and other lineup. So please enjoy the drinks and get to know each other.
Wahrscheinlich ist es auch einfacher. Wir experimentieren gerade mit, ja, ich weiß gar nicht, wie man, ja, also Artworm ist ja niemals, aber ich habe mein mein Arbeitskollege wollte es jetzt auch machen. Ich kann das halt nicht mehr sehen, das ist viel zu schwer. Ich habe es eine Mission gemacht, ich mache es nie wieder. Und er macht es gerade und er hat gemeint, wir haben jetzt mehr oder einfacher mit NDI. bin seit 5 Jahren von LA. Ja, 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 also die Fernseher sind zwar in, aber du hast ja genug selber. Ja, genau. Ich wollte es ja schon verkaufen, aber dann hat er gesagt, nee, nee, auf keinen Fall. Nee, nee, ich stehe jetzt nicht mehr. Ich habe nur das PVM, also nur das Beste von geil und Barcos und so. Also ich habe jetzt noch in Hamburg in der Kunsthalle 24 Barcos, dort ein Video mit dem echten Analogsplit mal zusammengebaut und steht da immer noch. Ich wollte nur sagen, falls du Technik brauchst, das Zeug mit Drogen, ich kenne sie auch bestimmt aus, also ich kenne sie auf jeden Fall aus. Ist klar,
Hallo Karin, mein Name. Sag mal, sieht man irgendwo demnächst in Berlin eine Installation von dir?
Tatsächlich jetzt, du hast die letzten 4 Wochen wahrscheinlich verpasst, weil da sind die ganze Zeit solche Dinge
Ah, schade.
Okay,
folge jetzt auch bei Instagram. Ich habe das gestern erst erfahren. Ich komme selber aus dem Hip-Hop und mache jetzt
because that's the camera frame. If I go somewhere else, then I'm the first one who's always running somewhere else and it's not in the picture. But this time, Wieland briefed me very precisely. Hello and welcome back from the break. Am I already? No. Hello, welcome back from the break. I hope you made some nice connections. I met some interesting new people. And this is in the end the best thing about the TouchDesigner Roundtable, the void between the presentations. Not to say that the presentations are not the highlights. So I'm very happy to present to you Ephemeral Tomorrow, which is ASAKO, RICCARDO and MAXIME. And they're very interested in art, science and space exploration and sensing the outer rim. But before I talk more nonsense, I'm very curious to hear what you have brought us. Thank you for coming.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you a lot for inviting us. We've been following these events since the very beginning. So it's a great pleasure to finally present something here. So yes, Stefan said we are media artists based in Berlin. We have this collective since almost 7 years. And we have different backgrounds, but we share the passion for space, I would say. And generative art as well, and light art. We've been working on light installations, interactive projects, and generative sounds projects. Now I briefly introduce myself. I'm Riccardo, I'm from Italy. I've been in Berlin since 10 years now. My background is in architecture. I did a master here in media arts. And I got to know Maxime and Asako through the German class many years ago. We unfortunately haven't managed to speak a good German, but we managed to have a good collective.
I'm Maxime. I studied fine arts and new technologies, like focusing on stage design and doing interactive stage design for theater projects and music projects, and working with Ephemeral Tomorrow for generative data-driven installations.
Hi, I'm Asako. I'm from Japan originally. I work, always on the audio base. And I've been working with them, so TouchDesigner is kind of around me all the time, although I don't kind of like I work with than working in. Besides a couple of projects I actually did with them with some design studio that I made a lot of spaghetti things, and then also the BST. But here I mostly talk about how I work with TouchDesigner with audio.
So very briefly, we started working with data sets. This is a first project that we did when we first started, so almost 6 years ago. It was firstly developed in processing, and it's a project about satellites. We got inspired by the amount of objects that are orbiting our planet, and we found some good databases where you can actually get data about these objects orbiting, specifically satellites in this case, but you can also get data from debris and small objects orbiting. There is a nice website called Stuff in Space, where you can actually see them orbiting around the planets. Yes, for this project, we actually used a database from amateur astronomers on the first example. And we showed it the first time in Italy, 6 years ago. And we did this piece that was essentially taking the coordinates of the satellites and the magnitude, which is actually how bright is a satellite as seen from Earth. And we use this to compose sounds and these visuals showing satellites passing above the location of the installation. Also one good point that we always try to include in our work is the term site-specific. So each time we show one project, since it's most of the time real-time generated, it's always different from the previous time we show it. So yeah, in this case, you can see the satellites passing above a small city in Italy, recorded some years ago, speeded up 100 times. We did this project, we brought it around, we did a version where for the 48 Hours Neukölln, it's a nice festival in Berlin, where we actually created this display showing the satellites that were orbiting, and we also used the sun position to create this kind of night mode and day mode fading. This is about the sound, maybe.
Yes, I used this, one of the original satellite signal recorded, and also used a synthesizer to create the 10-minute composition, which I handed to them to deal with it in TouchDesigner. Originally it was processing, but it changed to the TouchDesigner system, which...
I guess to explain how the sound composition worked for Satellarium, it was based on 10-minute sound sample that we would have one iteration of the sample for each satellite flying above the location, and the speed of the playback would be changed depending on the speed of the satellite it was related to. And also we were doing like some spatialization of the sound depending on the trajectory of the satellite. So, but yeah, we used to, so it was at a time we didn't know about TouchDesigner yet, so we were like kind of struggling with many different softwares, with a lot of OSC signal going through many layers and some siphon to share textures and things like that. But the latest version we did was in TouchDesigner, and then we could handle everything in one single software. So here is like the system we use to create the sound player. So basically, I did a base sound player with parameters for the spatialization and for the speed and the volume of the sample, and then I used a replicator to create an instance of the player for each satellite, and with some identification to kind of kill the player once the satellite is not in the database anymore. So to kind of keep on, we have a little video actually after of this project.
This was the latest iteration of the project where we projected the projection mapping at Niegenvo. It's a nice building near Berghain. And this was 2 years ago. We created, so we got a fund called Traustenstadt for public artworks. And we used it to finance the project and to also invite some friends playing for one evening where we had the installation running and also managed to work on a new piece called Limited Sky, which maybe you want to introduce?
So yeah, so following Satellarium, which is a project we did many iterations of. So the latest one was using laser projection, and it was kind of our first experience using laser projection on a large scale, which is becoming a tool we're using more and more thanks to partnership and support we're having from Laser Zollinger, a really good company in Berlin who's creating laser projectors. And so we did this limited sky version of Satellarium, which was outdoor using laser projectors, and it brought us also the opportunity to create a performance around the installation. And it's some work we're trying to do more and more nowadays. We're always trying to create a performative extension of our installation work to kind of add a narrative layer to the generative work. So the first time we did that was so for Limited Sky around Satellarium. And we did, so first version was only laser projection because it was outdoor, but then we created a mixed projection with video and laser together, which was presented earlier this year at Manifest.io. And yeah, before showing you some video, I will just go a bit in the patch, because that's why some people are here, I guess. So just a quick explanation about how we're doing that. So basically, we're getting all the satellites' trajectories on websites, and then we kind of like formatting the HTML page to end up with a nice table in TouchDesigner where we have like the satellite name, the time of entry in the sky above you, and where it's coming, and the speed and magnitude, everything. And then we're using this data to generate a representation of satellites using a script SOP to have like to dynamically create different patterns depending on this table database. And so this works for the installation and also for the performance part. We're like trying to add this real-time data and kind of implement it into our narrative. So here I'm kind of like showing really quickly how we use the name of the satellite to create some text layer, and how we like map it with the video also. But this is really fast. In this GIF you will see better after in the video documentation, but before, little word about the sound.
So for the performance, we created the loops that it's MIDI synced, and then also trigger synced with the visual and then sound. Sometimes I trigger things and I'm sending to them, and then sometimes vice versa. And then after, it was kind of like a silent cinema concert that I look at the visual and then play with the prepared live set. So yeah, those are the kind of different patterns, and then I prepare some loops also together with it.
So video?
Yeah. Where you can hear it.
you.
Solaris right away.
Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, this is another project which we exhibited again 3 weeks ago. And this is a project called Solaris. It's kind of a long research we've done about solar wind. Solar wind is this flow of charged particles that moves away from the sun to the outer universe. And being not a wind, but actually a flow of particles that you actually cannot see with the human eyes, but it affects the magnetosphere, so the magnetic field of Earth, and it affects also the aurora borealis, between other stuff. And we thought that this was kind of quite interesting, this interaction happening all the time that we cannot sense. We can sense it through the aurora borealis. And so, yeah, we did a bit of research and we found out that there is actually a satellite from NASA launched in 2016, which is orbiting around the sun, providing real-time data about the sun, and specifically about the solar wind. So yeah, we then use this database from NASA to do the first tests about this project and what best tool to visualize a flow than NVIDIA Flow in TouchDesigner. So we played a bit with the fluid simulation and we started linking some of these parameters of the fluid simulation to the actual real-time data from the satellite. And yeah, we created this first kind of sketches about it. Then we refined a bit the visual side and also the setup. We had a great opportunity this year to exhibit it in a super nice location in Italy, in Sicily, in Scicli, for Art and Music Festival. We got this very old church from the 1600s, where we could essentially transform in a meditative space, visualizing and sonifying solar wind. We also built a display showing the data, and we also included in the piece a magnetic field sensor, which would track the magnetic field in the location and would make it interact with the actual data from the satellite, so to create a bit this kind of site-specific project idea of combining the location with the actual data from space. For that event, we also did performance presenting the piece. As Maxime said, we also like quite a lot to present a piece with a performance, or a live performance, where we played with this data and yeah, live synths and generative sounds. Yeah, maybe you want to say something about
this one we presented it 3 times, and the first one I found this open source pure data patch, which was recreating the Brian Eno's music for airport. And I thought it's really good to use this one and develop it from it, because it has a sort of 7 sound that it's kind of recurring. So it's kind of like a spectrum of a sun or something like that, imagining in my head like that it's kind of goes well with a visual and very meditative, as a movement is very subtle and yeah, and using this like data from solar wind and then magnetometers that we are rescaling it in a way that somehow we feel it physically. And that was kind of the goal for me. And the first one on the right, we had to separate the sound because it was a group exhibition. So we used bone conductor speakers. So you put the elbows and then you have sort of like a personal space because displays in front of you. It's almost like a VR for me that it's inside of your head and separate from around, and it was very nice. And then the second one was in Italy, the big church, as Riccardo said, and then it was very spiritual in a different way. Also included this text-to-talk engine to create a scientific explanation in a different languages so easily, and then it worked really well to add some fact in the why we are doing this and what's this abstract visual is about. And then in the end, we did recently in the airport, which was great because music for airport. And yeah, some people just really liked it and then zoned it out, and it was like, I thought they really get it, and it was so nice. So now I do it with Max for Live because it's easier to get more musical sense to it than pure data. It takes really long time to develop something so rich. So my case at least. And yeah, they are very good useful OSC plugin that you can use with TouchDesigner besides Touch. Yeah, TD Roundtable, which is also great, like if you can use both of them at the site.
So, yeah, we're going to show a little video extract of the installation so it makes more sense, maybe.
Enriching our understanding of plasmas, magnetic fields, and space dynamics. This knowledge opens doors to practical applications across diverse scientific disciplines.
Yes, there was some. So, and here is just like a quick view of the patch where you see how the real-time solar wind data is influencing some parameters of flow in the patch. And then we'll move really quickly to another project that we did last year for Wildemare Festival, just because we wanted to show that sometimes we don't use laser projector. So, so here it was LED display system and sound that we could create outside on the festival ground. So it was out there for 1 month because this festival is happening over 4 consecutive weekends. So for us, it was a great opportunity to kind of try to put some piece of technology within a natural environment. So we decided to create a generative piece which reacts on weather data that we get through an online API, but also reacts to human activity around it. The idea was kind of to create some augmented reality display / reflection, where you could mix a human element within a representation of nature, and the mix between the reflection and the environment around it is also driven by the LED, because we use this two-way mirror film. So basically, when the LED is lit up inside, then the reflection is kind of overwritten by the LED lights, so it creates a kind of a dynamic reflective surface. So basically, you can see in the top left corner how we use the data to generate some kind of abstract visuals. There was like 5 types of different weather, and then we had many different generative visuals for each type of weather, which were driven by the different parameters. And then, as you can see in the other GIF, like we use TouchDesigner to easily split the visual into different slices to match it and map it to the LED, and then send the data through ArtNet to the module. So then I will let Asako.
Yeah, here, yes, I use the same data with the visual as usual, getting through OSC. And then first I thought maybe I use this, the AI Google, the magenta, but then at the time it was not so, I don't know, I thought like, okay, I just use a probability instead because it was enough for my project. And maybe in future I will do that. And depends on weather types, it's playing the different patch. And the subtlety of probability is shifted because by the air condition, like humidities and temperature and light and things like that. So you can feel the subtle changes. And we were sending it to the module remotely from the computer to the Raspberry Pi, and then so we can use this the distance sensor with a human interaction, and then playing some the beats on top of it, and then using this exciter speakers directly on this light box to have like the transparency, because the box was transparent, and then we didn't want to show too many things besides the light, so we just stick it, and then it was really nice for the open air festival because, again, there's like sound everywhere, and then we couldn't really create a meditative space, so that was really good. So, video?
So this is the last one we will present. I hope there is still a bit of time. This is from this year, this summer. A good friend is organizing a very nice festival in Carrara called Vox Marmoris, which is a festival combining music with art, and also an amazing location. The festival happens in the marble quarries around Carrara, which is a very famous city for marble in Italy. For this project, so yeah, this is a little bit about the concept. When you go, when you arrive there and you are on the seaside, you already see these mountains, and you can already see that there are some human-made actions happening. And these are happening since thousands of years, so many of the quarries there are used from since the Roman Empire. And it's a place, I would say, where you can really see this, how the humans are affecting nature in a way, because marble production got very exploded over the last years. They are monitoring a lot the mountains, but they're still continuing to extract. And one very inspiration point for this was what you see in the top right, which is this kind of constant falling of gravel, little stones from the mountains. You have it on the seaside there. When you go to the beach, you have these cliffs, which they always have these like little stones falling down. And we thought that that was kind of a poetic element to include in the piece, in the project. A bit of the background. So yeah, there is this festival, so we went there for 1 week. We did this residency there. And we wanted to do something starting from from the human activities. And the idea was to actually produce some sensors that are capable of catching the vibrations. And we wanted to do this piece also reflecting a bit about the use of nature, and specifically in that location, which is not so suitable for a music festival as well. So yeah, we wanted to essentially track or monitor all the vibration produced by the festival, so by the people dancing, by the speakers, and so on, and visualize them with a light installation and sound installation. That was the kind of concept. So we then started producing these sensors. We 3D print them. We went there. We placed them on the stones. And yeah, so we had some tests with some operators, marble operators there, which were so kind to drive these huge machines around the sensors. We had a little setup to monitor this data from the sensors. And also we wanted to also have a performance to introduce the piece, where we had those machines driving around the sensors and producing vibrations. So yeah, a bit on the visual side, we had this setup outdoor for 1 week. We had like 3 laser projectors, a big one from Laser Animation Sollinger. Thanks a lot to them again for supporting our works. So yeah, we could test there mostly during the night. And yeah, maybe you want to add a bit of the part. Yeah, this was some tests we did in nature.
Yeah, so we ended up like projecting like some particles which were generated depending on the data of the sensor, but like so we prepared a bit up front what we wanted to do, but with this kind of project, which is like in a really specific environment, it's a bit difficult to, to know how it's going to look like projecting on a mountain. So we had to prepare a bit up front. So here you see a bit how it looks like, trying to map some laser paths for the particles on the query. So basically, like the system, we created this kind of easy way to map some paths on the mountain, to draw them, depending on the different volumes that we could see, and that would make sense to have like a particle bouncing on. And then we use these paths as a particle emitter, and to also create a collider for them to like bounce inside. And yeah, basically that's kind of how it looked like in the end. Also, we wanted to like compare like this human-made vibrations also with like, let's say, natural vibrations. So we were also monitoring real-time earthquakes and representing them in parallel to the human-made vibrations, which the particles were representing. You want to say something like that?
One before still.
Ah, okay, sorry.
This time we had this the silent disco system. We had a support by this company called Silent System, And it was really good idea because the music festival next to, like right next to it, was really loud, and it was impossible otherwise to have like a real experience. And it worked really well. A lot of people came and then stayed and enjoyed. And some people said like, oh, looks like a mountain is crying. And I didn't think about that, but that was really beautiful. The sound was made with actual marble recording, and it's kind of like electroacoustic. What I always do, like always stretching the speed and the tone because of that, and then also kind of granular synthesis with granular samplers, which is matching also with the theme of this using the art material and into marble. And I have a couple like example. Yeah. Somebody was well, if it doesn't work, it's okay because it's part of video. This was
Eastern New Guinea Reg, PNG.
Was, yeah, we're gonna show a video, but it was, yeah.
So, yeah, little
Last video.
yeah, last video.
Please load.
Yeah, okay. Ah, okay, good.
Offshore Valparaiso, Chile.
Well, thank you so much for this presentation. This was really great to see how light and sound and it all comes together, and especially these little laser dots at the end. I think they're really nice because you can't help see them as little beings. I mean, I don't see tears, I see little beings, but you know, the other ones are technical, but this is like immediately something living. Are there any questions from the audience for Ephemeral Tomorrow?
Hi, my question is with regards to the Aether Echoes piece. You said that was over 4 weekends. And generally in my experience, even over 1 weekend, it's hard enough to manage an outdoor installation hardware-wise. So is there any insight you could share on how you manage that over multiple weekends in just terms of the hardware that was used?
Yeah, I guess you make sure there's no water coming in, first thing. And, it was a second year we were working for this festival, so we had a previous experience of doing a work which stays outside for such a long time. So, but besides the weather and water condition, I think, yeah, everything else is running smoothly.
Luckily it was fine. The computer was somewhere else, was not there, so it was protected and it was just the cabling going out, so it was kind of safe in a way. But yeah, it's always, I don't know, you never know what happens in this.
Yeah, I think that answers my question because the computer was somewhere else altogether. Okay, thanks.
Hi, thank you for the amazing presentation. It was like really inspiring. I have a question regarding the live setup. I was wondering how do you work with live setups, and so your main what I understood, the main trigger points are data or data sets, but how do you segregate different tasks while you're performing live? Like how are you controlling lasers or visuals? Is it just to one computer, or are there different setups that you use to control them, the parameters?
Thanks. So yeah, normally we play with our three computers, or two at least. Normally one is used for the sound generation, and then one for the visuals. For Limited Sky, we actually had 3 laptops playing, connected over network. How do we interpret the live data? This is always different according to the project. For the Limited Sky, we use the satellites or debris coordinates to generate part of the visuals, but also part of the sounds in some moments. For Solaris, for example, we wrote a sort of scientific explanation that was then translated in Italian, so it was actually written in Italian, but then pronounced by this automatic voice generator. And we also did there mostly the data from the satellites regarding the solar wind, controlling the visuals and the laser part, and the magnetometer mostly controlling the sound, I would say.
Yeah, I guess in a general way, like we have the live data which keeps coming into our patch, and basically some parameters that you would maybe sometime want to control with a MIDI controller. Here on some presets of the live, we decide to assign it with live incoming data, so you don't have full control on what's going on, but we're trying to create conditions where we can kind of limit the damage or expand the effect if we think it's interesting. But it's kind of like ping pong with live data and what you want to sculpt with it. And I don't know if you want to add something with the sound or.
Yes, it's just kind of like a force bandmate or something like that. We find a live set that it work with data, and sometimes the sound is generated already and it's coming from their computer, and then I'm working with the sound, or the Satellarium, the satellites one, like they had this like a location of a live satellite, and they are using these points to create this visual, right? So that's kind of how we work.
Yeah, I think there's many more questions, but we're already quite late. And if you want to squeeze out a good break, I think we have to stop it here. So thank you again for being here, for joining us here at the TouchDesigner Roundtable. And of course, feel free to ask them much more questions on a drink. We're going to continue at 9, and we're going to have a remote guest dialing in from Santiago, Chile. Looking very much forward to Pao Olea. I'm sure you all know her Instagram, and we're very excited to have her on the roundtable tonight. Very nice, this Carrara thing. Yes, I really like it. Ricardo told me about it while I was working on it, but I mean, the location alone is crazy. I mean, it helps when you suddenly have the festival in the foreground, you understand the dimensions. Even if it, I mean, when we saw our first images, so it was kind of just micro mappings, you know, some people took a lot of the mushroom or the bark. But yeah, like I said, I really like this little, you can't help to see those little things and also cool to be so minimal with this huge
Ich muss jetzt mal kurz versuchen, noch irgendwie eine Pommes oder einen Burger zu besorgen.
Hello. I'm really sorry to interrupt this obviously fruitful break, but we have our next guest in the Zoom already, and it's Pau OLEA. She is talking to us from Santiago, Chile. She focuses on the continuous exploration and research of movement and form, employing the visual language of geometry, noise, color, and light. And what I find really nice about her work on Instagram is that they're very minimal things, but they always have a very high visual quality and they're always somehow intriguing. And I hope we can ask her a bit how she creates that magic. So please welcome Pau OLEA.
Hi, do you hear me? First, we're just checking things. Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. I'm Paolo Lea. I'm a digital artist from Santiago, Chile. Recent years, I've been dedicating myself creating visuals. I mainly use TouchDesigner. Sometimes I use Notch, Unity, and right now I'm learning Unreal. And I'm going to show you a few visuals that I create and obviously share a few process and techniques. And the first one I create, for me, the important things is to experiment with materials and see the details and movements. For example, a few examples. Everything is 3D and textures. Here is a video how a little thing about noise and movement can work. And sometimes I work with musicians. This is a music video. There is no sound. It's just I want to share the image. And everything is about texture and think about the movement. Everything is go slow and see the details. And for sometimes I dedicate time to Notch. Yes, Notch. I didn't know anything about this program, and I challenged myself to create something. For example, this was for a music video for the record company Outside in Canvas, and my knowledge about 3D was create boxes, spheres, just that. And the cool thing about Notch was similar to TouchDesigner, so helped me to create these organisms and learn more about particles. And then I create more things and work with a performer. So we create this experience. And I had a video. This is a 41 minutes video, but I put it in 6 minutes. So it's the idea is the element is growing and then absorb everything and then change. It's like mutating all the time. And then it's full and then create something inside. So the cool thing was working with a person here in how she moved and how she react. Everything was moving. And sometimes I do live shows, not too much. This is Richie Hunting invited me to the last year to Product 10 Miami, and was my first live show. I collaborate with Hela Minus, a Colombian singer, songwriter, and producer. And believe me, it's been the craziest experience in my life. I have no words how to describe that because it's too different from Chile. The producer, the magnitude of this event was too much, but it was cool to have that experience. And this visual is about particles. I'll show this in a live show that I did for Mutec Chile. And yes, practicing about particles. But the question is how we start with all of this, how I create, where I learned this. So before all these visuals, I worked in advertising agencies. I have a degree in graphic designer, so for me, everything is connected to image. But all of these years, I always wanted to learn code, especially object-oriented programming. So I started with ActionScript. This is old school. I use Flash. Later, I began with processing. But initially, I think like everyone, I couldn't understand anything about code. I want to show you my first visual. This is it, black, white, and a few circles. And for me, it was all the time copy, pasting, and modify the code because I couldn't understand math, I couldn't understand trigonometry, and this is the same copy and paste and see what happened. And again, I'm going to show you a few examples, and again and again. So for me it was, okay, how I can create something different, because all the time was copy and paste and modify. What is the next step? How I can understand this? For a long time, I tried to check tutorials. I follow Daniel Schiffman, try to understand the code, but I couldn't. So after not seeing much progress in my visuals, I decided to go to study in New York at the SSPC, the School for Poetic Computation. And I had the opportunity to learn open frameworks with Zach Lieberman. And yes, this is the real, this is me, with Zach. And I learned a lot. Believe me, I learned a lot about code. During that time, my time in the school, everything that I had tried to learn in processing made sense. It's like everything that I learned about coding, math, trigonometry, it's like, okay, now I can understand, I can add this code and create things. So everything that I'm going to show you is about mathematical thing and trigonometry. And everything is about dots, and a lot of dots creates lines. That's this line that I read about Kandinsky. He said, what is a line? A line is a lot of dots. So for me was trying to create, and in the process, I fell in love of coding, and I love create visual. For me, was in the School for Poetic Computation was just 3 months, but for me, 3 months, I create at least maybe 50 visuals, working every day, was obsessed with this, trying to understand then the physical movement, particles, and how this move, and then tried with numbers, then letters, and continue understand the points, vertices, and all kind of stuff. And if you notice, the visual are black and white, linear, without depth, are simple. They are not 3D. It's just that. It's mathematical thing. And when I returned to Chile, I tried to continue with this, but I couldn't because I need to return to my job. I need to continue with my life. And I feel not too well to the results that I have with my visual. So it was then that I started having an existential crisis, questioning whether coding might not be for me. So I asked myself, maybe this is my limit. This is the top, what I can do. So thanks to life, I discovered TouchDesigner, and was at the end of 2019. A friend in Chile gave a TouchDesigner class, and I was blown away by the possibilities of the program. And this was my first visual that I made in TouchDesigner. And yes, it's simple, it's not too beautiful, but the most important thing is, at that moment, I understood I'm no longer dependent on knowing any more code. It's like I don't have that limit. So I went to home, I watched all the tutorials I could find, and I remember found William, Simon, a lot of tutorial, Paqueta 12, the populars, and this is a few results. Obviously, they are very similar as the tutorial because as everyone, always the same path is copy, paste, and modify. And again, I ask myself, how do I continue creating visuals without feeling like I'm copying tutorials? So I think that is one important point in all of this process. So what I did was, I remember when I went to the SSPC, Zach did an exercise they called daily sketches, and he posts one visual every day, and he did at least for 2 or 3 years. So I said to myself, okay, maybe I can do something similar. So first, I need to create rules. So the first rule was upload 1 video per day. Second, the visual must be a video for at least 30 seconds. And this idea is post a video, not an image. Third, try to make the video loop. But first, I need to learn how to create loops. Fourth, I need to always upload a daily video. So it's important if I miss something, no, you need to pause. If you don't like it, don't worry, just pause something. Fifth, try to apply color. Don't be afraid of it. So if you saw before, I create just visual in black and white. Always for me, color is a problem, but a lot of people said me, oh, you're very good with color. So I don't know, I think it's okay, but not too much. Sixth, enjoyed the process. And the most important rule is dedicate an hour daily to TouchDesigner. And why is this? I ask myself why or how Zach open frameworks and write a few lines of code and just create an amazing visual in just a few seconds or in a few minutes. And I remember a friend of mine, she is an illustrator, and she said me, I draw very well because I practice every day. And I thought, yeah, she's right. Everything about create something, no matter what. Maybe if you are a gymnastic or wherever, you need to practice for everything. So I decided that dedicate 1 hour, and maybe one day I'm going to open TouchDesigner and feel comfortable to create things. So at the beginning of 2020, I started this journey. Initially, it was about better understanding the world of 3D because I have a few knowledge. I told you, I just know how to create 3D boxes, sphere. I understand a little bit of material. So I decided, okay, how I can do the same thing with TouchDesigner. And yes, try to destroy elements. This is just spheres and change materials. And then always I challenge myself to use color. I don't feel comfortable with this, but yeah, I need to use it. I am a graphic designer, so yes, do it. Then mixing 3D, color, and material, and everything is a process. First is 3D, then color, and then put together. And then, okay, I feel comfortable with this, maybe put yourself more and explore the possibilities of materials. And this one, I use a lot of fractals, and just, if you know, be careful with the fractals, explode your computer, but with one it's okay. And then try to understanding instancing, and I won't deny it. It took me time to understand it. Now I got it, but at the beginning was, what is this? What is this? Later, Pablo Alp did a workshop in the metaverse. I think it was in 2021, something like that. And the tutorial was about organisms. And I think it was one of the things that amazed me the most because, okay, it's not all the time spheres or boxes or a torus. I can create a live thing in this software. So I enjoyed it so much that I created several visuals. This is a few examples. So it's always the same, but it's like, this is a process. From the top on the left is the first thing, and then to the right and bottom to try to change, apply color, the form, and what happened, break to the limits. It's like, that is one of the tips, just break things and change numbers. The cool thing about this is one of these visuals was displayed in Shibuya, Japan. So believe me, I'm very grateful to Pablo Alp to sharing this knowledge. Then continue with the routine to create visuals and continue to understanding instancing. And here again, challenge myself to move away from centralized 3D elements and instead paint the canvas. And return again to 3D elements, just simple black and white, torus, boxes with spheres. So I've been in TouchDesigner for almost 4 years. In 2020, I post almost one visual every day. I don't post every day, but I do try continue with this process because it helped me a lot to understand the designer, and maybe right now I can open touch and it's easy to create something. And if you ask me how many visual I create, today I did the count. So this is my folder. I have 85 files of TouchDesigner, but inside of all of these files, you can see between 6 to 20 visuals. So if I calculate an average of 9 visual per file, will be at least 774 visuals. So maybe it's more. So it's like, oh, wow, that's a lot. After all of this process was try to learn about TouchDesigner. Okay, I can create things, put myself to learn new techniques. This year, I decided to create a Patreon and YouTube channel to share what I learned over the years. So you can check this. There are free things into YouTube. And the important thing for me is the tutorial are in Spanish and English. Because if you don't know, you can find a lot of tutorials in English, but in Spanish it's not too much. So yeah, for me it's important to share that to the community in Latin America. And this is our few visual that you can create with the tutorials. It's like all the same that I share in my Instagram account. So I don't try to hide anything. It's like just use it, try and destroy it. Oh no. You can create crystals or think rewrite decay. Maybe hair fluffy things. And for example, the good thing about uploading tutorials is that I'm constantly learning, and it pushes me to learn things that I don't feel comfortable. For example, the last particle thing that I did was maybe 4 years ago, because it's again mathematical thing, and I feel the memories of processing in my mind. So I decided, okay, I want to learn particles, do it, practice, and then share it. And the question is, again, everything I thinking every year, I thinking about, okay, now what is the next thing? In this case is, and now what? And years of creating visual and now tutorial, how does this process continue for me? Because everything is about learn. Okay, I understand. Okay, now I share this. Now what? And this is I think my current process is what is now what. And the first thing, I think for me, is inspiration and community. I know you know a lot of creators, William, again, Paqueta 12, Mini UV. It's a lot of the same, but I think it's important share and meet another artist. And this is because a few weeks ago, I went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I had the pleasure to meet incredible artists. They have an amazing community. For me, was, oh, this is amazing. We are different in Chile. We don't share anything. So for me, it was important to have that in Latin America. And I want to share 3 there in Latin America. The other is different, but the first one is Qualia, pardon. Sorry, Spanish. Qualia Ave. It's a duo made up of Adrian and Tolch. They create interactive experience. I did a collaboration with them where we place my visual on an interactive wall, and I will share more about this project on Instagram soon. Enneagramma, she used a lot of rate decay. She shared with me some beautiful techniques that I use in one of my latest visual that I post on Instagram. And you have Mauro Cosenza. He's an artist and performer from Uruguay who is creating some crazy and interesting thing with body tracking, so you can check. And the final, and I haven't had the pleasure to meet her, but I'm a fan of everything she posts on Instagram. And she's Vivi, maybe I'm going to pronounce very bad, but it's Vivi.dere. And I love what she creates. She creates amazing organism of creators, and I love the care she put into her visual. So it's important to see what's going on, talk about other artists, and try to share, or maybe ask, it's like how you can do this, or maybe help me with something, or maybe create a collaboration with them. And the second thing, important thing, is research. And as I said, it's very important because it's like you have a long life to learn more things, and maybe when more information you can create, or maybe you can take something you created before and maybe apply new things. So I have a list right now, learn more about MediaPy that Torin released about tracking and the chain GPU. I have particles again because I want to understand better particles. I want to create more jellyfish because I like the creatures. I want to maybe understand more about tracking body. There's a plotter there. That is a specific shape, and understand reaction diffusion because I have a few examples, but I don't understand it at all. So I need to understand what's going on. So the question is, how do we start creating a visual? And for me, it's because this question is about, because I've been a lot of tutorials, and a lot of people just copy and paste and modify the tutorial as me, like I did years before. And other people with more knowledge copy and then change, modify, and then add more elements. But a lot of people ask how I can create a visual. So over these months uploading the tutorials, I realized that I use a lot of operators or techniques, and I use it all the time. So I'm going to share, this is like an exercise that you can do, and how to start creating something, because that I think is a hard thing to understand. So we're going to the first things. First, we're going to select an image. Any image. We can put maybe a movie file in, we can put the webcam, or maybe a Kinect or a video, whatever you want. In this case, we're going to choose or select the banana file, yeah. And we're going to create a visual with this. How? With this recipe. And the second, we need to add a display to give movement to our image. So it's important to the displays is to add the noise, and the noise needs to have animation. So the simple is that. Then we need to add a mirror and a blur, so no one recognizes the initial image. And four, we need to feel the environment. We need to paint it with something. So feedback is a good tool to do it. And the only thing that I add to my feedback is add a transform. And in the transform, I change the scale to just a little bit, is 1.01, a little bit. And then fifth, change the brightness, saturation, and color so that truly no one recognizes the banana. And the final step is add an edge for more details. And for that, you can create simple image with this with the same recipe, but maybe you change. And the first one is the result that we have with this recipe. The second one, we add a rotation, and just that. And the second one, we change the mirror and we change the rotation to the feedback. And with just that, you have this. And this is the recipe. It's important. This is the full network for the visual. First, it's important to add movement to your visual. With that, you can add a feedback. You can create a lot of things. So for add movement, you have a lot of tools or operators. You can use a line of code. You can use LFO, timeline, open pattern. You need to distort your image. For that, you have display, you have mirror, you have blur, you have the feedback. You have more, but I use all these maybe for all the time. Then you can change color or add color. You have level, lookup, HSB, adjust. And finally, add details. And I think the detail for me works like in the movies. In the movies, you have details like luma blur, like the depth and focus of your visual. You add grain with a noise and a composite, and you can add an edge, so you can add dark lines to your visual, and yeah, you can create something like this. So this presentation is try to share about all the process, because I don't have a master on TouchDesigner. It's just because I love it, I like it, and I want to continue doing visual. And this is an invitation to create, and you can create visual with a banana. And was also at the point where what I try to say is everyone where it could be in a point where you couldn't achieve what you wanted, and we have like a wall that prevents you from moving forward. So it's like, don't be scared about that. Everyone has the same problem. So everything is a process. Everyone has their own. So learn, work, and explore. So with time and dedication, you will achieve what you want. So good luck. So thank you.
Wow, Pau, that was, I think you achieved the inspirational part already. I also feel like I should say that the Node Institute would be very happy to have you as an instructor for the next season. We should talk about this offline very soon.
Okay.
But now I would like to hand the questions to the audience. Do you have anything you would like to say to Pau? They're struck in silence. So my question would be, so you said this, what will be the next thing? And I feel it was very interesting how you shared this personal process with getting stuck and then kind of fighting a way out by looking for the next challenge. And I have to admire that, because you know, each time takes courage to do that step and get out of the comfort zone and start with things you're not really love. But like you said, it's the repetition and the continuous challenge and the learning that then gets wind under your wings again. But what would be your next thing? Do you already have an idea? Are there things that are intriguing you?
Yes. And I'm learning Unreal, so I want to mix TouchDesigner and Unreal just for the powerful thing about the render in Unreal and see what happens. I want to create landscape with that and yes, explore and see what happens. And I think someone said this to me. It's like, he's a musician, Christopher, and he said me, Paula, you know a lot of software processing, open frameworks, P5, Unity, you create VR projects, TouchDesigner or whatever, but it's like you're like a musician. It's like you learn a new instrument every time. And for me, yes, for me, a software or code is a new instrument to create something. And this is because when I learned ActionScript Flash at that time, and was the only software that I know. And every time that I have a new project, I want to create something, and I couldn't do it in Flash. So I discovered that I was in a comfortable area, but I couldn't move forward. So I decided to learn everything. So I know a lot, and I discovered that I love that. The moment that I got it is, I think that is my passion, learn and discover new things.
It certainly sounds like that. And thank you so much for sharing this process. Then, oh, there's a question from Hashini.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, thank you for that. That was really inspirational. I actually have two questions. One, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the different forms that your work takes place, because I know I've seen your work in like an augmented reality book and seen some videos of also you working with dancers. I'm wondering like what different forms does your work take place? And my second question is, would you consider doing like a TouchDesigner book of recipes? Chapter 1 banana, chapter 2 jelly beans, and maybe more recipes to follow.
Can you repeat the first one a little bit slow? Sorry, Spanish things.
Sí, sí, sí puedes hablar un poco sobre los diferentes formatos que hacen con tu trabajo, porque he visto que trabajas también con AR y también con diferentes dancers. ¿Cuáles son los diferentes ejemplos de tu trabajo y con los visuales y todo?
Okay, I understand everything. Nice. I work a lot in publicity, advertising, so I'm a graphic designer, but I discovered everything about code. So for a long time, I create interactive things for museums. So I learned about Arduino, sensors, everything. So for me, it's not a limit of what I want to create. It's like depend on the project that is. For me, I want to create everything. And maybe that is because I always have the curiosity to create things. Yeah, for me, it's not a limit. I can work with a performer. I can create augmented reality. I can create. Right now, I'm a teacher for VR projects, and I teach for students who are studying video games. So yeah, it's a lot of things. And I think one important thing is when you put the title of artist or digital artist, everything you think about art, you think the classical art, all the kind of stuff. But for me, the inspiration, I watch manga, I watch anime, I watch movies. I'm from maybe another generation who focus on other things. And for me, it's important to create things, new things. And the second question, I forgot that, no, I remember the second question. And about the book, it's a good idea. I didn't think about it. And yeah, it's a good idea. Maybe, yeah, I need to think about it. Yeah, just that.
All right, then thank you very much for joining us here. It's
Thank you.
the only sad thing is that you can't be here in person and we all get to know you because
Yeah.
you sure made us curious. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we do hope that we will have the opportunity to meet you in person soon.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Bye. Thank you.
soweit. Ich muss schon wieder weitermachen. Hello, hello. And again, the time flies if you have good company and a nice conversation. But it's again 10 o'clock and time for the next presentation. But before we come to that, I want to introduce a very special person. Hashini, could you please come? Because, I mean, I said it before at the roundtable, but Hashini has joined the Noid Institute. She works for us as a program manager, supports us with the roundtables. And this is an honor because, as you might know, if you know Hashini, she's doing a lot of things. She's a media artist, a curator, and the list goes on. I can't say all the words. But yeah, we are super happy that we have her to support us. This allows us to expand the course program. And part of that is something that Hashini is going to introduce now.
Yeah, hi everyone. If we haven't met before, please come and say hi to me during tonight. And for our online audience, please reach out. I'm usually the one that replies on the Instagram messages, so that's me if you want to say hi or hi in the chat. I want to introduce our next speaker, actually, and then talk a little bit about what we have in store for her at the Noid Institute. So I want to introduce Diana, who is an artist and researcher. She is, her practice delves into like feminist approaches to and digital colonialism, understanding that in her media practice. And I'm very excited that Diana is actually going to be part of our Noid Institute family, along with Helene Ulas. In January, starting right at the top of the year in 2024, Helene and Diana will be doing a workshop, a 6 weeks workshop with the Noid Institute called Generative Choreography. And this is a workshop that looks at using embodied practices that comes from performances and delving into that practice and how you can combine it in TouchDesigner. So the main objective is to draw inspiration from compositional and choreographic techniques and then apply that also using TouchDesigner. And I'm sure Diana will talk more about that. So I'm super excited to welcome Diana, artist and researcher.
Thank you so much, Harshini, for this lovely introduction. Thank you so much, Stefan. Thank you, Noid Institute, for organizing this talk. I'm feeling very honored and humbled to present my work in front of this friendly but also very good-looking audience. And yeah, so I feel also a bit intimidated because I'm not a touch designer expert. Actually, I'm coming a bit outside the world of touch design. And I personally found the talks and the presentation earlier very beautiful, poetic, and inspiring. My angle is a bit different, and I hope I can contribute, and at least I can find some people who can relate to my own experience and to my process. I'm going to present my process and my background as kind of my entry point to this world of creative technology. So my story started a long time ago in Romania, where I was doing a degree in engineering. And afterwards, I came to Berlin to pursue a PhD in real-time systems and computer science, basically. And in Berlin, I fell in love with the world of contemporary dance and performance. So later on, immediately after finishing my PhD, I started actually studying performing arts, like from a theoretical, but also from a practical perspective. And I tried to combine my two backgrounds, like within the format of a playground, which I co-founded, called Replica, like under the larger name, the Institute for Creative Anticipation and Performing Arts, like meaning that it was focused very much on storytelling, but also like on embodied practices, like and radical thinking as well, coming from performative arts. My practice is based on creating performative artifacts or performative experiences, which are respecting principles of choreographies and dramaturgical storytelling, for designing human-computer interactions, machine interactions that are playful and poetic. And the original kind of thinking around poetic machine, but also machines that are expressive and emotional in similar way as humans are, were when I was daydreaming, like while studying for my PhD, like thinking about real-time systems. And there was this film by Von Kar-wai, like this is like an image from the movie 2046, in which a very kind of slow, time-challenged robot is not actually real-time. And yeah, back then when I was designing systems for cars and network on wheels, I was thinking, what if those kind of networks on wheels and cars would be falling in love? After all, love is a matter of timing. It's no good to meet the right person too soon or too late. So it was the first time when I was thinking like technology as an actor or a potential actor engaged in affectionate dramaturgy, like with other human participants. And my tendency back then, like hidden behind the screens and kind of being a bit frustrated to sit at computer all day, was like to counteract that with getting more into my body and getting away from computers. So like, yeah, this was part of my performative training. Like I discovered there was a radical power in performance art that I could bring to the world of technological design. And there was a lot of knowledge that was not only about the intelligence of the body, this kind of affective, corporeal intelligence of the primary instrument that we have for knowledge creation, but there was also like a lot of radical mission and radical discourses around representation and collective authorship. So I was seeing like a gap and a radical potential of kind of combining this world of performance art with all the theory behind, with the world of technology making and how the systems are technologically designed and constructed. Yeah, so after my studies, I wanted to push this practice like even further. So like I went to train in Poland at the Grotowski Institute, and there is this theory or like this way of training performers to be like very much present within the moment. And one way they trained us to be present in the moment was to ask us to jump backwards, like while dressed into this kind of lake. And yeah, there is an element of jumping into the arena, is this kind of an element of being completely present in your body. And this was the main theme of this performative training, also devised this method of actor training devised by a Polish theater maker called Grotowski. He was having an approach to psychophysical training for actors, in which the distance between the outer response and the inner stimulation of impulse was collapsed. So he was encouraging actors to live moment by moment fully present in the context and in the world around them, like to gain a sensitivity, a very highly tuned sensitivity of the body and of the senses, and to connect that with a very fast way of reacting to the world. So with all these kind of theories and knowledges and ideas, I came back to Berlin, and I founded Replica as a playground of bringing together practitioners from different fields of art, like performance art, but also like design and creative technologies, and to create formats around like playing a bit with this kind of different concepts. And Replica was kind of founded on 4 pillars. Like this was like in 2017, so it's quite a while ago. Like, but my practice was built around 4 pillars. So like one was the workshop and communities, creating communities. The other one was prototyping and creating experiments with those prototypes where like the body was augmented through technology. Then there were like participatory performances and also like exploratory research. And I'm going to showcase a bit of each of those pillars. One of the first workshop format we had was called The Magic Thing, Objects of Desire, and was very DIY format for a day, in which we tried to place technology at eye level also, like with the embodied expression and embodied theater making. We were actually like building a frame where we are starting from the theater exercises and then kind of harvesting from there the sensation and the experiences that we were discovering together with the other people in the room. We were splitting in groups, and we were encouraging people to create their kind of own mini performances that were supposed to be presented at the end of the workshop, at the end of the day. And this is a bit of an example of how one of those one-day kind of workshop performances was being led. So what was important for us in that moment was also to create a bit of awareness around the topics and the politics of how technology was built, and to kind of, explore those topics together with the creation of the technologies. The other pillar was the prototypes and experiments, and here is an example of a prototype I made back then, which was also built based on a very simple theater exercise, which purpose was to build trust between two human participants. So like you're just replacing one of the human participant with a machine, and we are trying to see how this mediation alters the original purpose of the exercise. What I found particularly interesting for exploring technology this way was also discovering ways in which context could be relevant to the technological artifacts themselves. For example, this is a context of a safe theater studio or a safe rehearsal room. But if this exercise could be taken out of the studio, for example, on a busy road or like in a more dangerous real-time immediate context, then the meaning of this trust exercise could be different. Another of the pillar was participatory performances, and one of the themes that I kind of kept exploring from the very beginning was that of connecting this idea of algorithms and rituals. Rituals were defined by one anthropologist as being culturally patterned behaviors. And I thought it would be interesting to explore like how algorithms and rituals like share similarities, but also like how can they connect communities. And this is an example of a performance we did for Republica in 2018. And here, again, we wanted to create the technological element as a connector between different bodies, between different human bodies. But we also want it to be self-reflective and kind of like create a critical discourse around the technology itself. Like, for example, we were exploring here this idea of the black box. And we were making it into this physical object that would gather information and data from our participants and would be physically exchanged into this kind of algorithmic procedure. During this exercise, mobile phones were collected. Like, we were encouraging people to place their mobile phone into this kind of black box. And then changing the owners, people could also take pictures with their mobile phones. They were instructed like at different steps of the algorithm. And we are trying to create this kind of embodied experience and raise questions of privacy and data collection and data sharing, but in a way that it was more body-friendly and also like a different temporal level. Like, it was not the tempo of technology, the fast-paced and invisible like level of technology, but it was the visible layers of bodies, and it was like the slow process of time that only through the interaction of bodies can exist. And then one of the most interesting pillars which I kept exploring since 2019 was actually the exploratory research which I've done together with Replica. In 2019, I had a chance to be awarded a Volkswagen Stiftung grant for a project called The Shape of Things to Come, rehearsing future societies with artificial intelligence and performing arts. And here I wanted, one of the leading questions was, in what way performance training techniques and the way performers are trained to hone the instrument of their body could inform the creation of embodied intelligent systems. And this was quite generic, this question at the beginning. So therefore, we needed to make it a bit more precise. And again, I focused on a particular framework for actor training, the one that kind of influenced me a lot when I experienced it in Poland. The method from Grotowski Institute, which is this psychophysical approach to acting. In this approach, the body of the individual and the body of the collective are seen interchangingly as performative elements. So there is this element of group building and connection, increasing connection between the individuals. Also the connection and honing the sensitivity of their body in connection to their natural environments. But there was also this element of singing. The human voice was considered by Grotowski very important to anchor the actors into the present moment. So during this training, we developed rituals for dressing with our wearable devices, which were collecting signals, like body signals, monitoring the progression of our participants. And during this training, a speculative narrative developed as well, in which technology became an actor in the speculation itself. So one of the questions was, can we build animalistic technologies? So yeah, we explored this parallel of training the body in a particular technique in parallel with how it would be to train a neural network, whether the intelligence of our body has like any kind of correspondency in this way that we are training machines. And building on one of the ideas that emerged from the training, this idea of body as rhythmic vibration, this importance of voice for anchoring the body in the present moment, we developed a wearable device, a neck piece, which transforms movement to sound. This device was meant to give the body a voice, another voice. And it was designed by one of my collaborators throughout the last 4 years, Mika Satomi. The specification for the technological element, like the original specification, was kind of mentioning things like how to give a synthetic voice to the body, not fully fledged words, but rather syllables, vowels, consonants on the movement of the body, as if this band sensor could become vocal cords. What words and sentences can we create with this vocal apparatus? But there was also like an intention to create a voice not only for the individual, but what if we can conceive as a voice for the collective body? Can we map language to the movements of the collective body? Again, not fully fledged words, but rather alphabets, vowels. And we explored this idea of voice also based on one of the early voice synthesizers developed by Bell Labs in 1939, that was Voder. And in this Voder originally, Voder was like developed as a piano, like the human operator was staying on a chair in front of this machine, operating different aspects of modulation of voice. So yeah, so my idea was to bring this human operator, like, again, like, instead of like having the human operator behind the screen, behind a machine, to put this machine on the body and to kind of increase the sensitivity of the body, like use it as a way of augmenting the body, but by giving the body another voice. And this wearable device was used in a performance which I choreographed called, in 2019, called Dancing at the Edge of the World. And this performance was trying to reenact this idea of a cyborg that kind of uses technology to bridge the collective body with the individual self. And this is a snippet from the performance. So here is Mika Satomi placing the sensors on the performers. And what you'll see in the video is like the process of dressing, but also of training the system. And the system, like the collective body, trying to vocalize the vowels of English language. Yeah, so here, like Mika was training the system actually with kind of mapping the postures, like certain postures of the performers to these vowels from the English language. And during the choreography and some parts of the dance, like this kind of synchronized movement, were forming a sort of like soundtrack that would resemble a speech or like a kind of movement translated into an alphabet. Throughout my practice, I'm using a lot this idea of rehearsal as method and building a hybrid practice in which I'm involving collaboration with different people. Like my practice is profoundly collaborative and it's making use of skills that I don't necessarily have, but my collaborators do. There is a certain element of getting lost and finding your route, but usually I start like searching for something together with the team of people that I'm working with. And sometimes we might find what we're looking for, but sometimes we might find something else. And I think it's very interesting, exactly those processes of finding something else. Like, it's always the surprising element that has been the most inspiring for me. And I have to say that bringing technology, creative technology in the same studio with human performers, it's bringing together two different timelines because technology is fast and the human body has a certain delay and slowness to it. So this is the process. The theme of creative technologies comes together with the team of performers, and based on structured improvisation, we are searching for those moments of magic. And sometimes we discover them. This is, for example, one moment that we discovered during our collaborative practice. And it was used by me as a seed for a choreography I designed and I did for Tanțim August this summer, in which I reenacted a ritual, a rain-making ritual from Romania. But this is one of the moments of discovery. So my work goes through different stages in which certain motives, I'm taking them and through several iterations, and repetition plays like an important part of the training process, but also in the compositional process. And then I work with multiplicities, for example, bringing this kind of voice to the body and kind of researching also in different textures of what this voice can be. Like Voder, the voice synthesizer, was one of the modes, but we explored with different other modes, like granular synthesis. And there were long hours, actually, of embodied improvisation and research. And first we started with my friend Kate, who was exploring what it means to feel the sound in different parts of her body. It's an act of... It's an act of performative improvisation, but it's also an act of listening. And when you bring two bodies into the space, then you have to listen not only to your own movement, but also to the movement of your partner. And this improvisation has certain rules which are simple and are building upon each other, but they're also building on this kind of radical act of listening, of being attuned to the other person. once you get used to the basic technique, then more bodies are brought together through this kind of texture of sound. And then the listening is like even like increased in attunement. This is where this kind of notion of building a collective body comes into play, and like how to increase this kind of connection to each other. And then after these elements are in place, there is the voice coming over. Each performer is bringing their own voice into this kind of spaces, so the texture gets even more granularity. So after exploring roughly with this idea of mapping gestures to sound, like we continued with even more in-depth research and exploration of this kind of embodied voice and artificial intelligence practice. We started like getting more explorative about particular exercises for actor training and particular actions. So we wanted to establish also a vocabulary of movement and actions that were actually meaningful, like for example the action of pushing some other body against your own body. And in process of doing this research, we are also always very much aware of the way this politics of space and politics of practice was being negotiated between us. So there was also like a self-reflexive element around the creation of this technology. And we were very aware of which were our desires, and which were our roles, and how we were negotiating those roles, like within the team. And I think this is very important also like for the ethics of technology building. So this was also an exploration about how ethics could be explored in small projects and small teams like ours, like in small artistic projects like that. So yeah, it was not only an augmentation of practice and improvisation with AI as a partner, but also a reflection about what this relational partnership might mean. What are the agency and control that technology or the human had, like in this relationship. Yeah, the ethics of practice were a very important component of the process. Here is an example of how this push action was translated to sound, and you're trying to build almost like a catalog of movements that the machine could understand. Yeah, so based on all this research and like on this magic moments that I've noticed in the researching process, like in the studio, I choreographed a piece for Tansim August called She Brings the Rain. Was a rain-making ritual from Romania, which was based on a dance, on a traditional dance and a song. And we used these technological artifacts to be part of our performance. And this is how it sounded like. Here is another side research and exploration. So like based on that design that we made for these wearable technologies, like we had many kind of branches that were like springing out of that research. And here is actually like a very small branch that involved actually the use of TouchDesigner. It was for a small residency that we did in Dortmund, like at the invitation of my friend and collaborator, Mary Thomas. And we were basically trying to connect these kind of devices and the impulses that were coming from the body with, with representation in TouchDesigner. Helen created these visuals, which were basically like a representation of breathing and breath.
Okay, I'm gonna just tell you what I see. Now it's stretched out. Is it?
Now it's stretched out, yeah.
Same, I suspect. Yeah, you're the top one, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. That makes sense, right?
Yeah. Moving arms are movements that the network doesn't know so far.
Okay.
So let's kind of try to see what the network doesn't know.
Okay. 50. Let's go. And.
Yeah, here we are trying to teach the network like with different types of movements. Yeah, so yeah, those were the principles of using technology like in different explorative way in combination with performative techniques. In the course choreographic, generative choreographies that I'm going to do together with Helen Ulash, we are going to take a bit of a different approach. We are going to use another system for training called viewpoints. And yeah, I'm very excited about exploring the viewpoints from a TouchDesigner perspective. Yeah, I would like to leave you with an inspiring quote from Brecht saying that art is not a mirror to held up to reality, but a hammer with which to shape it. And I do believe that bodies and kind of embodied practices can bring a new perspective to the way technologies are built. Yeah, thank you very much.
Diana, thank you so much for this talk. I think it's really great to bring these two worlds together. I think it's also important for our TouchDesigner community, who maybe sometimes is very blindly enthusiastic about technology and let's try the next thing and let's try the next thing, but we're also humans. We have bodies, we have emotions, so these are two worlds that can benefit very much from each other, I think. One question that came up during your talk, just a tiny thing, because you said there's different speeds between human actors and technology, and I experienced the same. I was just surprised that you said that the human is slow and technology is fast. Because my experience, my limited experience is working with dance performers and so on is, well, they are super fast because they can express something immediately, whereas we are then, okay, now we have to code something, then we have to test it, and now it's not working, can you please wait, and so on. So how come that you have the opposite impression?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. What I meant is there are two different parts of like thinking about time and processes. Like in the development process, yeah, of course, developing technology, it's much slower than kind of developing performance, I think. So in the improvisation field, like in the studio, when you're trying to customize your tools, yeah, it takes much longer for the technology to catch up, actually. But in terms of awareness, I find, like, and overstimulation or like stimulation of the body, like in ways of like when you have the technology already designed, like when you have like a system that is kind of, yeah, technology is much faster in terms of like how fast it processes information. Like we have a very limited ability to process real-time information compared to our machines. I think that's what I meant. So, yeah.
Okay, I get that, yeah. There's the difference between the rehearsal and the actual show in a way.
Show, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any questions for Diana? I'm sure you have.
Hi, hello. Thank you so much for the presentation. I have a question based on, because this is mostly a research project, but have you ever thought about making it to a public, because performance is not always to someone, it can be also for ourselves and as an investigation, but have you ever thought about, I don't know, being in a stage or in an installation?
Yeah, so I think it's super, like that's a question that we explored also. We tried to explore like how can we actually bring this technology, this wearable device, to be directly experienced by an audience. Like, I think that's a bit of a problem with the wearable devices, because like they could be used in the training, but it's a bit more difficult to kind of, it's also more sensitive when you deal with data, and it's also like raises some questions of privacy again, and ethics, and like consent. Yes, I think it would be super interesting actually to bring that in an installation and to explore this kind of like topics a bit further. I think it would be interesting, yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to know if you already have done it, so if there was a way to see it like as an outsider.
Yeah,
but
no, I haven't done it yet.
Okay,
I haven't explored that way with the wearables to the public, no.
But that will be really interesting if
Yeah, I agree.
one day you develop. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Then I think this was all a lot to process today. I think we had very inspiring talks, and we had more than we usually have. So at this point, thank you very much, Diana. It was really great. It was, and we are very much looking forward to the course that you're going to be holding together with Helene, who's also here. So feel free to ask more questions in a more private setting. I want to say goodbye to the people in the stream. Not you, because I'm sure you're going to hang around for a while. Thank you for coming. Please stay tuned. The next roundtable is planned for November. As always, the last Thursday in November. Hopefully we can explore a new location. We're in negotiations, let's say. Thank you to Wieland behind the tech, and to Harshini helping him. And thanks once more to the wonderful team of the popkudamm, who makes it really easy and very welcoming for us to be here. And of course, thanks to Derivative and their team. Bye-bye.